Hello and good afternoon. Welcome to the ABB FIA Formula E World Championship, as the second race of the weekend will be getting underway this afternoon. But of course, first, the early session of the day is free practice 3. Yesterday, we had the first race of the weekend at this beautiful World UNESCO Heritage Site here in Diriyah. 22 drivers took to the track and battled it out, and we will be unpicking what happened in a short moment. But first, let's take a look at the stunning scenery around this wonderful track here in Saudi Arabia, just a stone's throw away from the capital of Riyadh. So we had round 1 in Mexico City, started off just 2 weeks ago on the 14th of January. This weekend, a double header at the delights of Diriyah in Saudi Arabia. Then we'll be heading to our first race in Hyderabad, India, followed by another debut performance in Cape Town, South Africa and Sao Paulo, Brazil. And an old favourite on the calendar, Berlin, followed by Monaco, Jakarta, Portland, another new one on the calendar, Rome, and finishing with a double header in London. There is Antonio Felix da Costa, previous champion, doing his skipping to get him into the preparation before a race day. Getting settled into the Jaguar TCS car. The Avalanche Andretti boys looking absolutely unstoppable at the moment. Andre Lotter with his new teammate, Jake Dennis. And there we are, evidence. The sun has been shining, but that will all change later this evening as we head into our first night race. So this is how the championship standings look. Jake Dennis for Avalanche Andretti, 44 points, just 1 point ahead of Pascal Wehrlein, yesterday's race winner. Sebastian Buemi finally took his first pole position in 3 seasons. Lucas di Grassi, Sam Bird, Andre Lotterer and Jake Hughes in the top 7 there. Jake Hughes being our rookie driver. Antonio Felix Costa, just 6 points so far. Stoffel van Dorn, reigning champion, 1 point so far this season. He's going to be certainly looking to improve on that. Let's take a look at the team's championship at the moment. Avalanche Andretti, Tag Heuer, Porsche, both running the Porsche powertrain. Absolutely dominant start to the season in P1 and 2, followed by Envision Virgin Racing, who had a phenomenal moment yesterday, finishing P4 and P6. Joining me in the commentary box is Karun Chandhook, who's going to take us around this track.
Yeah, thank you, Nikki. Welcome to everybody listening in. It's a fantastic circuit, one of 2 halves, really, in terms of just the layout and the differences. First part of the lap, starting from turn 1 all the way to turn 14. The track winds its way uphill and then slightly downhill to the tight right-hander of 14. We then got the long right through 16 and 17, leading onto the back straight, heading towards the big overtaking spot on the track at turn 18, which is actually where the start of the race happens later on today. Turn 19 is where the attack mode is activated before they come across the timing line out of turn 21.
So there we have it, track temperature, 28 degrees, 19 degrees in the air, which is a lovely temperate climate at the moment. Humidity pretty low, as you would expect, at just 34%. But as we said earlier, tonight they will be racing in the evening when the temperatures really drop. We'll be putting on our warm coats and our woolly hats. Now, any minute now, we will get underway with our first session of the day, free practice 3. Also joining me in commentary box is Saunders CB. And there we are, the man of the moment, Pascal Wehrlein, who was the most emotional I'd seen yesterday after the win on the podium. I was really annoyed, though. He didn't cry. I really thought I was going to get some tears out of him, but there were no tears from him yesterday.
Yeah, I've got to agree with you, actually. It's the most amount of emotion I've seen from Pascal. I mean, just the team radio alone, when he crossed the line, it was filled with just like so much excitement and happiness. And then seeing the way that he celebrated with the team was great. And I actually just caught him a little bit a few hours ago. We were at lunch and he was very like chirpy and smiley. So going into this race, I think he's going to be confident for sure, as now the cars are out on track for FP3.
What a beautiful view, looking at the slalom, the slalom part of that track. It looks so fun to drive. I'm really quite envious of the drivers. I mean, I think this is unanimously a favourite for them, and you can completely see why. And considering they're talking about yesterday, saying, oh, this is proper back to street circuit. It's seriously tight, twisty. There we are, we've got the Maseratis. Good to see the Maseratis back on track. Obviously, yesterday, Max Günther, well, and Edu Mortara, both made mistakes earlier in the session, and Max Günther, unfortunately, didn't start the race.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of tired eyes in that garage right now, because that was a monumental work effort to get the cars ready. And there's a stoppage already, unfortunately. Another Abt Cupra disappointment.
That is such a shame. Kelvin van der Linde, who is making his rookie performance this weekend, well known in the DTM series, but of course he's stepping in for Robin Freins, who injured his hand in the first race in Mexico City, so he won't be joining us for the next few races. But Kelvin van der Linde, yesterday they had issues with the car. He didn't get much running time. Oh, there we are. He's up and running again. Oh, that's good. But he finished P16 yesterday in his first single-seater race of his career ever. Not bad.
So just to follow on from Maserati, you know, Maximilian Günther, that was a really disappointing thing to happen in the practice session, just to not even be able to take part in the rest of the day. I'm interested to know, Karun, from your point of view, having been in the team and seen how the dynamic works, you don't see on camera a lot the work that goes into getting a car ready after an incident like that for the next race, because double headers aren't always that common in a lot of motorsport. Yeah,
of course. I mean, Max crashed in qualifying, which, you know, it's a very tricky thing, because you're obviously trying to push the limits, but on a street track, and especially bearing in mind that the race happens only 3 hours after qualifying in Formula E, you do have to play that risk versus reward game a little bit, and he got it wrong. The team had to build a completely new monocoque around, you know, they had to build a car around a new monocoque last night.
Okay, we can open the gap a little bit and then we push next lap.
So they, you know, it would have been 8-9 hours of work through the night. And then they've got to come back today and do a whole day of work again. So, yeah, certainly some very tired eyes and bodies in there. Just looking out on track, you can see the dust coming off the tires here. And this is because, as you said before, Nikki, this is the first running on this track today. So we're obviously out here in the desert, funnily enough, and the dust has been blowing onto the surface overnight. So very early on in the session, expect the lap times to really tumble quite quickly as that dust clears out.
Just going back quickly to what we were saying earlier, though, what's interesting is here, because it's a night race, they don't have to sort of shut up shop until 2 a.m. And then we're not back on track until 11 a.m., which means there's this 9-hour break for all the teams and the engineers. Whereas on a normal doubleheader, they get a 6-hour gap. So they have to work till, I think, midnight, and then they're allowed back on site at 6 a.m. So actually, in one sense, they get less time to work on the car, but a longer break. But yeah, when you've got a car to repair, you need all the time you can get. Okay, let's take a look at Jake Dennis here. Again, I mean, he has been on absolutely flying form this season. A race winner in Mexico City, and then couldn't quite defend off Pascal Wehrlein, but he put up a pretty good fight. And let's not forget, he qualified in P12 yesterday to come through on the podium and finish in P2. I mean, that was the race of his career, surely.
A man that said there wouldn't be much overtaking on the circuit yesterday before the race. I gave him a lot of stick for that in the post-race press conference. I said, you said you wouldn't be able to overtake. Not only did you overtake, Pascal overtake, Andre overtook, and there was a lot of overtaking in that race. So I think they learnt a lot yesterday, and perhaps this track is driving a little bit different to what they expected, which is great for the viewers and for us, because we had some great racing yesterday.
Now, there was Ticktum that's just about to come through. Now, actually, you had a quick chat with Dan Ticktum yesterday. He did an absolutely sterling job in qualifying, got through to the duels, finished in qualified in P4, but it all fell apart in the race.
Yeah, I mean, the unfortunate reality with Dan Ticktum is that he is driving his socks off in this car this season, but the efficiency just isn't there in the race. It's a very big
the car is not braking properly.
Copy then box.
Feels like I'm being pushed.
Box.
It's never good. Braking problems for Kelvin van der Linde.
So we got Max Günther. Here's a replay of him getting through round 10-11. That's where he had his crash yesterday, wasn't it?
Too scared to watch. What's going to happen? Okay.
I
think that was okay. Did we miss something there?
This is a man, actually, now, Jake Hughes. What a revelation. And the race pace hasn't been quite there, but in terms of qualifying, getting up to speed of what it takes in Formula E, he's doing a very good job, I think. Yeah,
he was a standout performer, I thought, of qualifying yesterday. But the race was actually quite disappointing. You know, they just didn't seem to have the speed or the efficiency that they needed to compete against the likes of Wehrlein and Dennis, or even Sam Bird and Jaguar, and they just sort of tumbled down the order, didn't they?
I think that's what Sam was saying after the race. You know, he just couldn't catch them. He couldn't catch that Porsche powertrain. And, you know, I suppose now that we're into our second race, it's not just the fact that they're good at this track. They were good in Mexico as well. So, yeah, time to worry.
Interestingly, the kind of word in the paddock within the drivers are, if you can be good in Mexico, if you can be good in Diriyah, you can be good anywhere in this calendar. Because you've got extreme opposites with like almost traditional racetrack versus very dusty one-line city street circuit. So everything in between is almost easier, I guess.
But I think when you actually look into it, it's not just about the efficiency, and obviously it is very efficient, the Porsche power unit, but it's also about the corner speeds. You know, they're fundamentally able to get through the corners quicker, which means they come out of the corners quicker, which means they need less energy to go down the straight. And then you get in this cycle, as we see Dennis go across the line to go second fastest, 2/10 behind Hughes. But I think that's something that it's not just about the efficiency of the motors, but it's also about the chassis setup they've got.
Now, we just saw Antonio Felix Costa go past then, and I think there was a lot of anticipation over the start of yesterday's race, how everyone was, well, there's going to be havoc, I think the prediction was. And it was actually only Antonio Felix Costa who unfortunately got caught out with a bit of collision that caused a safety car at the start of yesterday's race.
I mean, Roland as well, wasn't it? Roland lost, they sort of concertinaed when Evans was rejoining the track, and then the two Mahindras at each other. So, yeah, a bit tricky. Da Costa, he's had a tough start to the season, isn't he? Obviously a former champion, but it's really not started well for him.
I think today could be a great day for Da Costa. Just thinking about that powertrain yesterday, Andre made up, I think, 6 places. Pascal went from 9th to the win. Jake made up 9 places. Jake Dennis made up 9 places, that is. So without that incident, is Da Costa having a storm of a race yesterday? And if he can keep himself out of trouble today, is it going to be a good day? I think there's every chance.
There is every chance. I mean, but you have to keep in mind, in Mexico, he didn't have the pace that his teammate did. You know, and I think that's where we have to give credit where it's due to both Wehrlein and Dennis. I think that they're outperforming their teammates, and they're doing a great job in the cockpit.
Now, the Mahindra guys. So Lucas Di Grassi did a great job yesterday in qualifying, finished P7. But again, that race performance just really didn't have the pace, finishing in P13, which is a disappointing one for him, given the fact that he was obviously on the podium in Mexico City.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one, isn't it, Di Grassi? Because Mexico City is almost like his perfect circuit. So much success there. 4
times crossing the checkered flag first. I mean, that's a record in Formula E, that's
Absolutely.
for sure.
Just to go back briefly on what you were saying about the corner speed, Kareem, it was interesting because...
Sector 1, 1/10, Sector 2, 1.5 tenths, final sector, half a second.
A bit of team radio from Di Grassi there. Jake Hughes on an absolute flying lap at the moment, purple in both Sector 1 and Sector 2. The general anecdote across the paddock from the drivers having to follow the Porsche powertrain is that, for example, Tixum said that he felt pretty confident in one corner that coming out of it, he was always 2 or 3 car lengths ahead of anybody else, apart from when Wehrlein came up behind him. And suddenly they were glued to his bumper, into the corner, out to the corner, and then Wehrlein was away. So it's really interesting to actually see how much of a difference there is between the different powertrains, and it is, you know, vastly significant. I'm curious whether in the short turnaround time we have between each race coming up now, especially between now and Hyderabad, how much the other teams can do to, you know, level the gap.
Jean-Eric Verne there, slightly off the pace, down in P19, but obviously still early days. Jake Hughes phenomenal start to FP3 there with a 10.07.
The Penske's have not had a good start to their season, considering they came into it with, you know, all the expectations of being the favourites. They can't unlock the qualifying performance. I think their race pace is fine when you know, they're going around and around, they get the tyres in the window, but they're just not able to deliver the qualifying speed. And at the moment, the level is so high and so competitive in this championship. If you don't qualify at the front, then unless you've got a huge pace advantage, as the Porsches have shown, you can't come through. So, yeah, I think they've got a lot of head scratching going on in that Penske pits.
Plus, these guys, Maserati MSG Racing, you know, they were the former Venturi team, who they were proper championship title contenders. They were runners-up last year, and so far they've got no points.
Got no points and a very big damage bill as well from yesterday.
Yeah, I feel a bit sorry for James Rostow, who stepped in as team principal this season. But that's a hard start.
Looking good so far for McLaren, Neil McLaren. 2 good laps there, and Ras here on another push lap here. Can he?
It's going to be interesting.
Get back up there.
Yeah, the times are tumbling now, isn't it? Buemi snuck into the 109s, so that's the first of the drivers to do that. It's as the track cleans up, and certainly in the last 10 minutes, and we'll start to see drivers using the higher power mode of 350 kilowatts, then I think we'll see some big changes in lap time.
Did you say 300? 350?
350 for the higher, isn't it?
Yeah, I thought I misheard you, sorry.
You know, Renault Rast noticed something happened in the race yesterday. Rastest lap is back. Fastest lap of the race, Renault Rast. Remember, he did it 4 or 5 times in a row in season 7.
Rastest lap. I like it. Who came up with that one?
I think it was one of the digital team and Jack Nicholls sort of collectively came up with that one.
Oh, that was good. Okay, you split it between the two of them. Oh, right, okay, so let's see what Andre Lotter has been up to. Here's a little replay. Bit of a lock-up.
Quite a big lock-up.
Yeah, all right, fair enough. Went wide, but nice and easy recovered. Plenty of dust there.
That's such a tricky braking zone, that turn 18, because it's a bit bumpy and the drivers are really struggling. I think actually these guys at McLaren have done a very good job in terms of braking stability. That seems to be one of the strengths of their package, as we see Rast having a bit of a slide coming out. But yeah, that seems to be one of their strengths. Sergio Sette Camara has just done an unbelievably fast Sector 1 in the Neo. And he is really, as we look at Sam Bird starting at another timed lap, but Sergio Sette Camara is on an absolute fly at the moment.
Sam Bird finally managing to turn things around after a bit of a torrid season last year. Just what he needed, just at the right time.
It's interesting with Sam. You know, yesterday after the race, he said that at the beginning of, towards the end of last season, he was starting to question whether he'd made the right call about whether the team that he was in, was he going to be able to compete again, get back to the sort of podium and the winning spots that he'd been to before. So this is just similar to what Buemi said, I guess, with his pole position. This was a validator to say, yeah, I'm here, I'm in the right car, I'm doing the right thing, and everything's up from here, hopefully.
Yeah, that's amazing what Buemi was saying, how, you know, you really start to doubt yourself as a driver, and do you have the competitive edge that you used to anymore? So again, you know, in the same way that we saw how much it meant to Pascal Wehrlein to win yesterday, that pole position was everything to Buemi and the team, wasn't it?
It must be frustrating as well. If you're in a car that maybe struggles for race pace against another, and you're just putting everything into every single corner, and cars are disappearing around you, you know, that's got to play on your mentality a little bit as well.
I think Sebastian Buemi's about to start a quick lap, so this is going to be interesting to see if he can match his pace from yesterday. But for now, that is James Barkley, team principal of Jaguar Racing.
Look at Di Grassi here, way too fast, and he's in the barrier.
Not what you want.
No, he was unbelievably fast. I don't know if he had some sort of an issue there, because that seems extraordinarily fast heading into the right hand of 18.
And you never see Di Grassi make mistakes like that. Very consistent, calculated driver, but good to see him in the pits. They'll quickly check to see how much damage has been done. Or you can see on the tyre there.
Yeah, I mean, they're checking his suspension. I think the Tech Pro barrier that he went into has probably saved him a little bit, because if you'd hit a concrete wall at that speed, it'd be...
You won't be bouncing off
Yeah, you won't be bouncing off that.
There's something the drivers have been saying about the feeling of this car kind of naturally swaying towards a lot of understeer in most corners. So in a circuit like this, which is so unforgiving with racing line, how difficult is that? If you've got a constant understeer almost, having to, especially that fast sector 2.
Yeah, well, understeer just bleeds lap time, and you know, for people at home to understand, essentially, you go into a corner, you turn, the front of the car doesn't grip up, and you're just having to wait. So you spend so much time waiting off the throttle pedal for the car to grip up. So it's just a very frustrating way to drive, and it's not quick. Kelvin van der Linde on his first weekend, so they've managed to resolve whatever issue there was earlier, which is good news for him and Abt. This is a guy who needs as many laps as possible this weekend.
Promising first 2 sectors there, based on his previous times before and yesterday's time, I say.
Yep, Boemi a 9.5, so we see a big slide there coming out of penultimate corner.
Both the Neos towards the top as well. Cameron second, Ticktum in fourth.
That's pretty good from van der Linde to be, you know, if he can get himself...
He gave a bit of understeer in turn 1, but I don't know if it actually did much, so it didn't feel bad. I think I would keep it.
So complaining about the understeer in turn 1, but then saying, actually, I like it, I'm going to keep it. Okay, fair enough.
We got the full cycle of thought there,
Yeah.
didn't we? Love that.
No, I think what he's trying to say is they made a setup change to the front roll bar, and I think it's given him a little bit of understeer at turn 1, but it's improved the car everywhere else, which is why he's keeping it.
I know it's difficult for these drivers, but it does look good when they're sliding around and have to be great power slides to save themselves.
Okay, so quick tyre change. It's interesting the strategy with tyres, particularly in qualifying, because no one really knows what the secret is. Whether you should change the tyres halfway through the session, how to keep the heat in the tyres and get the best performance out of them. There's a lot of whisperings going on, I think, between the garages at the moment, what the best approach is, and no one seems to be sure still.
Now, there's lots of theories at the moment, and it's funny, every team goes, well, we think this is the way to do it, but nobody actually says we know yet.
Yeah.
but that, it's, you know, I think that's part of the challenge, right? You've got a new tyre manufacturer in Hankook who've come in.
Yeah.
And it's created another challenge for the teams and drivers, which is interesting.
I think it's one of the struggles that DS Penske were talking about yesterday. They just can't quite, get the maximum performance out of those tyres that they need during qualifying.
So Dennis's lap there takes him up to P8, whereas Ticktum, are we seeing a repeat of yesterday? The 1 lap pace being very good, very, very good again. But it's so frustrating. We started to talk about it a little bit earlier, that the race pace isn't there for the team, and it is very much a mechanical hardware situation where the powertrain they've got to work with just isn't giving them what they need. Ticktum said to me there was a point in yesterday's race was the second half where in that second section going downhill, he's barely on the gas at all. He's having to just recoup. Meanwhile, the Andrettis and the Porsches around them are driving like they're not even have to save at all. Must be incredibly frustrating.
Quite right. Although apparently the Neo guys have got a piece of software that effectively gives the drivers ABS, so they never lock up.
The front, yeah, he's on the front, absolutely.
Which is just
great.
Brilliant. Nice little advantage there.
So Verne is backed out of that lap and moved out of the way. As what have we got here?
So,
Sasha Fenestraz in the Nissan. So he's done a personal best in Sector 1. He's about half a second down. But at the moment in 15th, if he gets a good final sector, he could get himself into the top 10.
Again, you know, Sasha Fenestraz, he is also a rookie driver that we've been talking about a fair amount. Okay, so he hasn't wowed in quite the same way that Jake Hughes has, but early days.
This is a circuit that should feasibly suit him as someone that's done well in Macau before as well. I think that back sector they often refer to as, you know, similar to Macau. I really like his attitude, Fenestraz. I think he's got a good mindset.
He's always very happy, very positive, and always very eager to sort of come up and say hi and have a chat, isn't he? Norman Nato, again, slightly struggling for results so far this season. Back in at Formulary, this time with the Nissan team. See what he can do.
Great middle sector from Norman Nato there.
Yeah, this is another team, isn't it, who they've not had a great run. Into second, but they've not had a great run in the last couple of seasons. And this is a big year for them, you know, new set of rules. In the past couple of years, they kept saying because of the homologation, they were locked in, they couldn't do anything. Now it's a clean slate. And as Nissan's a big global manufacturer, and really the expectation must be on the team to deliver.
Yeah. And also, global manufacturer, they're kind of the leaders, or they were the leaders, in electric cars on the road. So they should have that little bit of extra knowledge, give them the edge. Another
example of consistency within powertrains as well, because their race pace looking very similar to that of Neil McLaren using the same powertrain.
So there's Jay Penske, team boss of DS Penske Racing.
Always looks like he's ready to fly a fighter jet.
He is, isn't he? He looks like he's in Top Gun.
Top Gun, exactly.
I always keep thinking he could be in
We
Top
need
Gun.
to get him the leather jacket to go with it. So Mitch Evans, let's see what he can do. It is a, not quite, P6. About 4/10 off the pace from Dan Ticktum there. Still, he's nearly 2/10 quicker,
it's
Dan Ticktum.
Yeah,
What is that secret?
I feel like with a one-lap pace, we're all just living in Dan Ticktum's world.
I think the...
living in Dan Ticktum's world, now that's a scary
I was going to say, I think that's
just
quite
head
a
to
scary
toe in Gucci.
That's P6, 3/10. I was mega sector 1 and sector 2.
Do you think he has like Gucci fire suit underneath?
I wouldn't put it past him.
So Sergio, 4/10 off the pace there, in at P7. This is a track where Sergio said the camera's done well before, actually. Qualified 11th yesterday, which was a respectable start, but dropped back to 15th during the course of the race.
Word on the street within Neo.
Does that sound good?
For Sergio City Camera is that he's got the pace, it's coming, he's just overloading a lot of the software at the moment with his driving style. They just need to work the balance out.
Okay.
I don't really know what that means.
I won't lie to you. I think
you said it with such conviction. Yeah. I thought you had this great explanation.
When the team says something...
I have no idea what that means. I mean, I've driven in enough teams and worked with enough engineers. I have no idea what that means.
Well, let's try and deduce
Basically, that means they don't know what they're doing, and they're trying to get the car and the driver to work together.
I think what he's doing is he's driving to his limits, but the limits and the limits of the car aren't in sync. I think it's essentially that.
I feel like we should go and have a chat there after lunch.
Our own interpretation. Oh dear, we're having to stop all there. Not a good lap from him.
Yeah,
off the pace a bit.
He is, isn't he? I mean, he didn't come through the pack yesterday. You know, Jev made a few moves and sort of dragged himself up. But Stoffel, I mean, he pulled off an amazing overtaking move on the opening lap, and then just got stuck, really. And it didn't seem to have the pace to move up.
I was chatting to the team about, you know, what it's like between Stoffel Van Dorn and Jean-Eric Byrne working together, and said, you know, although the results haven't come yet, there is something different when you have two world champions in a team together. They're just kind of, I think they were actually described as extraordinary people. You know, they really are the cream of the crop. And you can see that in just their entire approach to a race weekend, their work ethos. Okay, so we've got 5 minutes left of FP3. Oliver Rowland doing a quick lap. Let's see what he can do.
Okay, that was a good test with the extra clip. I wasn't as good at turn 18. I lost. I'm sorry, Mitch.
Fastest sector himself, sector 1, sector 2. 8/10 off the pace there. Down in P17. So not quite the pace we were expecting, given their good qualifying performance yesterday. Sergio Sete Camera just did a great sector 2.
Yeah, he was very quick in first two sectors, but then way off in sector 3. I don't know if he made a mistake somewhere on the lap, but yeah, it was started off well and sort of went away.
So Dan Ticktum, currently still unbeatable in FP3. 2/10 quicker than Norman Nato. René Rast in third. Sebastian Buemi fourth.
Oh, see Ticktum fly past Cedric there on hot lap.
Am I the only one not improving on 350?
Right,
Anyone not improving?
So he's asking, is he the only one? Basically, it sounds like he's gone into the high power mode and hasn't improved his lap time. Whereas Ticktum, it looks like he is pushing on this lap and he is improving. He's found another just under a 10th in the first 2 sectors. He might have a little bit of traffic ahead of him in the final part of this lap. Let's see, but this is brilliant to watch. I mean, Ticktum listen, in terms of car control and confidence, he's got it, hasn't he? A Macau Grand Prix winner. He's definitely hustling that car around.
Has he done it?
Oh, no.
Funny story from yesterday, during the duel with Roland and Ticktum. Ticktum was so quick in that duel, almost a second up, that Roland had to ask his team whether 350 was working. Oh. That is the pace that Ticktum was putting in then. Unbelievable.
And what did they tell him? No,
Yes.
sorry. Don't worry, it was our fault. Sometimes you think you just want your team to lie to you to make yourself feel a bit better. All right, René Rast here, currently in P3. Can he improve on his time in the last couple of minutes?
You're still P1, but obviously not improvement. Faster sector 1.
So no.
Oh, that was
Disappointed with
no,
that.
they have made contact.
Bit of debris there as well.
Yeah, flying off the Ab Cupra.
Yeah, there's a bit of contact there between Da Costa. Didn't catch which one of the app cars that was.
So at the moment we're being told by the FIA that Sergio Sissicamera and Andre Lotter are under investigation for a technical infraction. Not quite sure what that means at the moment, but we will keep an eye on that one. Hopefully it's nothing and it will go away. But we'll find out more soon.
So Sean-Eric Burns on a lap. We're a 10th down in sector 1. René Rast is on a lap.
I don't think he'll be improving on his last lap time.
He's
for
quite
sure.
some way down.
Jeff pushing 10 seconds behind.
Oh, this is a good start from Jeff.
Yeah, so Jev is he's done a strong middle sector as well. He's 9 thousandths up on Ticktum's time, so it's the first bit of pace. The challenge for DS Penske is, you know, at the moment the track temperature is nearly 30 degrees. When we get to qualifying, it will already start dropping down. It's only an hour and a half away, but they've got to somehow unlock the performance. Jeff does go second fastest, less than a 10th behind. Van Dorn is on the lap, but not as good as his teammates so far in the first sector. We'll see, pick him up here, coming up into 16 and 17. Ticktum getting nicely out of the way. And about a 10th down on the middle part of the lap. So he's still thereabouts, isn't he, to get in the top 5, Van Dorn?
It's a real business end now of this practice session.
He's overshot it. He's overshot 18, 19. He's going to lose some time there. So just went in there a bit too hot, I think, and that's what compromised his line and his exit. So
oh no, not a good one from Stoffel, unfortunately. Dropped down to P8, 3.5 tenths off Dan Ticktum's pace.
You've got to be thinking about who's putting in the consistent lap times now for this quali format that we have in Formula E, because you know, it's all well and good staying out for half an hour and lap, and then putting in a good lap at the end, but you've got to be able to go out and have maybe 1, 2, 3 laps in the group session, and then 1 lap in any of the duels if you make it that far. So it really does ask a lot of you. And the consistent drivers are, I mean, it's Dan Ticktum, isn't it, at the moment? It's Dan Ticktum, it's...
Mitch Evans is on a very strong lap at the moment.
Evans, yeah,
the 10th up in the first 2 sectors. We see a whole flurry of cars. 2 Maseratis coming across the line. Oliver Rowland is on a slightly better lap at the moment. Let's see what this does for him. Stays 18th.
Just shows, though, again, how tight the cars are. You know, you've 1 second between the top 20 drivers. It's tighter than it was yesterday.
Evans goes to the top.
Nice. Mitch Evans there with a 1:09.09. Well, there you are, Dan Ticktum. The challenge has been set.
See, the checkered flag is out, so this is the final laps for these drivers. Buemi, personal best in the first 2 sectors, but a couple of tenths down. He could still get in the top 5. Yesterday's pole sitter, of course.
That is a brilliant result for Mitch Evans, because I think obviously seeing Sam Bird up on the podium yesterday and, you know, watching your teammate enjoy the celebrations when he finished in P10, he needs that extra bit of confidence today.
Ooh, ticked him.
So, oops.
He's just showboating,
He just wants
isn't
to show off and do a bit of a wheelie. Bit of a donut.
I bet he loved
Very
that.
nice.
Right,
Brilliant.
I think we've had everyone across the checkered
So,
flag.
there we have it. Mitch Evans. Wouldn't have predicted that one, would you?
Strong lap, strong lap.
Really,
It's good to see you up there.
phenomenal lap. Dan Ticktum and Jean-Eric Verne. So, the challenge has been set for qualifying. But as you said earlier, Saunders, the question is, it's all very well doing it in this session where you've got half an hour to perfect that one lap. Coming into qualifying, obviously they've got 12 minutes in the group sessions, but it's all about being in the top 4 in Group A and the top 4 in Group B to get through to the duels.
And
And that's what the drivers have got to do.
I guess the main takeaway as well from yesterday's race, looking forward even further to the race today, is that overtaking is very possible if you have the powertrain to back you up. So where everyone ends up in the mix is going to be incredibly interesting in the rest of today's sessions.
It's also interesting because they had a little bit less energy in this race yesterday and today. 41 kilowatts available in Mexico, and just to make it a little bit more competitive, so there was more lift and coast, more late braking, more opportunity for overtaking. They did reduce the energy to 40 kilowatts, and I do think that also impacted how much overtaking we saw, because, you know, again, if you looked at the energy levels during the course of the race, they did have to do a fair amount of energy management, particularly towards the end. I think Sam Bird was a little bit lower than the likes of Pascal Wehrlein and Jake Dennis towards the end of the race. So it's still, you know, this ultimately, you can't just go flat out and furious in Formula E. This is all about the long game.
That's
So
another.
it's all very well, you know, doing a Dan Ticktum and setting this epic lap in FP3 or even in qualifying, but it's all about the energy management over the course of the full race.
So it's further testament to that Porsche powertrain, isn't
Yeah,
it? The fact
absolutely.
that, you know, Pascal Wehrlein, I think, made 6 overtakes in the first half of the race before you're really thinking about proper management. And then when it came to the point of actually having to strategize and manage and hold position at the top, he was up on energy. It's remarkable.
Yeah, phenomenal. Oh, predictions for pole position then?
I'm going to say Sam Bird.
Ooh, all right, very nice. Go on, Saunders.
Dan Ticktum.
Okay, there you have it.
Go on, Gilles.
He was so close.
I'm gonna go for an old classic, Jean-Eric Verne. Why not? Mix it up. Stoffel Van Dorn there, going to get weighed. I love that view. Tell there's no wind though. Flag is not waving at the moment. So there we have it. Mitch Evans looking very happy there for the Jaguar TCS Racing team. A 1:09.092. Dan Ticktum though still looking good in FP3 with a P2. Jean-Eric Verne, Norman Nato and Sam Bird are the quickest 5 drivers in FP3. Jake Hughes, our rookie driver, still doing well there. 5 tenths off the pace. Stoffel Van Dorn in P9. Sergio Setién-Camara, 11th quickest in that session. Antonio Felix da Costa still struggling for pace in his Tag Heuer Porsche in 12th. Sasha Fenestras, again, one of the rookie drivers in P15. Jake Dennis, our championship leader for Avalanche Andretti, down in P17. Be interesting to speak to him to see what's going on with his car during that session. And Lucas de Grassi, not going well for him in the Mahindra, 2 seconds off the pace in FP3. So there we have it. Jaguar boys heading back to their garage. Sam Bird keeping his helmet on, which I feel always means they're feeling rather emotional and a bit disappointed, hiding their facial expressions. Mitch Evans is obviously going to be chuffed with that session. He was a bit deflated after yesterday's qualifying, so hopefully things are turning around for him. Still scratching his head though, wondering what's going on.
This is an interesting story. Like, I thought maybe they would translate some pace from yesterday, the race pace, into one-lap pace. It doesn't seem that they've done it because none of the Porsche powertrains are in the top 10.
Except Lotra.
Just on the fringe. He's 10th, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the first two from yesterday.
Here's a theory. Have they mastered then getting heat into the tyres when it gets colder, but in the warmer sessions, it's not as such a big an advantage? There you go. That's my theory.
Yeah, I think qualifying is still reasonably warm, though. You know, it's still in the daylight. It's the race where it gets dark. You know, qualifying is done at 3:30
but they didn't do well in qualifying.
No, I agree.
Yeah, they did well in the race.
Yeah. I don't know.
But they can overtake.
They can overtake.
A lot of cars. But if anything, yesterday don't need to go by.
Yeah.
Understated yesterday, Andre Lotterer. Made up 6 places in the race, very quietly going about his business.
I mean, they were 17th and 18th today, Dennis and Erline, after finishing 1st and 2nd yesterday. So.
Well, there we have it. Dan Ticktum, what's your secret? It's brilliant, though. I love this success story for the Neo team because they've had so many years of struggling, you know, towards the back of the grid, and it is just brilliant that we can see this fantastic performance from them. So René Rast will be doing his data analysis. Always a fan of the data. So let's take a look back at what happened in today's session, FP3. Well, it was good to see both the Maserati cars back out on track after yesterday's collisions.
Indeed, a huge amount of work going on in that pit garage, and as the cars headed out on the track, it was quite dusty in the early stages, but both Max Günther and Edo Mortara rewarding the mechanics for their good night of work. Stoffel van Dorn struggled a little bit early on in the session, but managed to get himself into the top 9. Sam Bird in the Jaguar did a solid job there, finishing 5th at a track that he knows and loves.
Yeah, it's looking really good. And a bit of a lock-up there for the Avalanche Andretti. But we saw a massive... The times really fell down, didn't they, in the second half of the session, as they would. And it's starting to paint a picture of a story. As Lucas de Grassi came into the wall there, bad moment for him. And this car all over the place, this Cupra.
That was Kevin van der Linde having a big slide out of turn 19. As the session unfolded, we saw drivers pushing harder and harder as the track cleaned up, and the times, as Saunders said, started to fall. Dan Ticktum went to the top of the times quite early on and stayed there, while Antonio Felix da Costa got into a little bit of trouble with one of the apt cars. Ticktum went into the runoff area at 18 and did a little bit of showboating, but while he was doing that, Mitch Evans in the Jaguar snuck through to get to the top of the times by a 10th.5.
So I think the biggest win in that session has to be the Jaguar car. Both Mitch Evans and Sam Bird in the top 5. Jake Hughes down in P8. Lucas de Grassi wondering what happened during that session. Both the Mahindra cars not looking as strong as they did yesterday. But basically, this is the chance. They've got just over an hour and a half before qualifying gets underway. That session is always absolutely crucial in terms of more data analysis. They can't get enough information out of these cars during these sessions. So plenty more work will be going on in the garages ahead of today's race. Now, qualifying will be getting underway, a local time at 3:30. Join us to find out, will it be Mitch Evans lining up on the front row of the grid for the second time, for our second race here in Diriyah? We'll see you then.